As she descended the stairs, she could hear the sounds of voices and laughter coming from the backyard. It sounded like the party was in full swing, but she couldn't see anyone yet. Rebecca cautiously approached the glass doors leading to the backyard and peered out through the glass. The view took her breath away for a moment. The entire backyard had been transformed into an enchanting and magical space. The guests were all dressed in white and were mingling, dancing, and enjoying themselves, completely unaware that someone unexpected had entered Cara's home. Cara and Michelle were still seated at the table, deep in conversation about Liz, when Michelle abruptly stopped talking. Her eyes widened in surprise as she noticed Rebecca standing by the glass doors. Cara, is that—" Michelle paused, pointing discreetly towards the door. Cara followed Michelle's gaze and gasped softly when she saw Rebecca. "What the hell is she doing here?" she said quietly, exchanging a confused look with Michelle. Cara and Michelle exchanged a quick, worried look with each other. They both knew Rebecca wasn't invited to the party, so her presence at Cara's house was unexpected and unwelcome. Cara decided to get up from the table and approach Rebecca, trying to keep a friendly expression on her face despite her confusion and concern. "Rebecca, what are you doing here?" Cara asked politely but firmly, stopping a few feet away from the glass doors. Rebecca put on a friendly smile, as if she was completely oblivious to the fact that she wasn't invited to the party. "Oh, hi, Cara," she said pleasantly, not seeming fazed by Cara's cold demeanor. Cara crossed her arms, still trying to hide her annoyance. "I asked why you're here," she said bluntly. Rebecca chuckled casually, acting nonchalant. "Can't a girl crash a party?" she asked, her smile widening. Cara's expression hardened, but she tried to maintain her composure. "No, actually, this is a private party, and you weren't invited," she replied curtly. "How the hell did you even find out about this party? We haven't spoken to you in months," Michelle retorted. Cara nodded in agreement, narrowing her eyes at Rebecca. "Yeah, and you weren't invited for a reason. This party is for friends and family. You don't fit into either one of those categories," she said firmly. Rebecca shrugged nonchalantly, her smile not faltering. "I have my ways," she said cryptically. Cara couldn't hide her annoyance any longer. She was starting to get agitated with Rebecca's nonchalance. "That's not the point. The point is, you can't show up uninvited and expect us to welcome you with open arms," she said, her voice stern. "Yeah, Rebecca, I don't think you remember what happened the last time you were invited to one of Cara's parties. You and Marnie caused a whole scene whilst fighting over Don like you were still in high school. After we kicked you both out, we made it very clear that you are not welcome here. For a while, at least. Until you got your act together," Michelle said firmly. Cara nodded in agreement with Michelle, her arms still crossed over her chest. Rebecca's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, come on! That was months ago! People change, people grow up," she said, her tone a mix of defensiveness and feigned nonchalance. The other guests at the party exchanged glances with one another as they noticed Michelle and Cara's heated conversation with Rebecca. Liz comes back outside, rubbing her forehead. She knew she wasn't seeing things when she noticed a figure standing in Cara's living room. She sat back down next to Michelle and watched as the argument unfolded, trying to stay away from the drama. Cara rolled her eyes at Rebecca's attempts to downplay the situation. "Maybe you have grown up, but that doesn't mean we've forgotten the way you behaved," she said bluntly, her gaze fixed on Rebecca. Michelle nodded, chiming in with her own thoughts. "Exactly. You caused a lot of drama and hurt Don's feelings," she added, crossing her arms too. Rebecca's facade of nonchalance finally fell away, and her anger surfaced. She narrowed her eyes at Cara and Michelle. "So what? I'm just supposed to sit at home alone and sulk while you all have fun here?" she snapped, her voice rising. Cara bristled at Rebecca's tone. "Yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. You're not welcome here, and not after the way you acted at my birthday party," she said firmly, her face set in a stern expression. "I thought we were friends, Cara. What changed? You can't forgive me for one slip-up? I mean, you've given Cris and Marnie hundreds of fucking chances. But what about me? If I never came to that intervention, Marnie wouldn't be in rehab right now. Think about that." "Oh, no, she didn't," Maria said under her breath. Cara's expression hardened at Rebecca's accusations. "Don't give me that bullshit, Rebecca. You're not the reason why Marnie went to rehab. She went because she realized she had a problem." She snapped back, clearly not amused by Rebecca's attempt to garner sympathy. Michelle chimed in as well, her face set in a stern glare. "Yeah, and you're not helping anyone by crashing this party uninvited and causing a scene." Rebecca was getting more and more worked up as the argument continued. "Oh, so now you're all teaming up on me," she accused, glaring at Cara and Michelle. Cara rolled her eyes, not buying into Rebecca's pity party. "We're not teaming up on you. We're just calling you out on your shitty behavior," she said bluntly. Michelle nodded in agreement. "That was so uncalled for. You know, what you did at Cara's birthday party. You and your sister Marnie were fighting over Don like he was a prize. It was so high school and out of line. I don't care that you apologize. You are still delusional. Oh, for Christ's sake! I'm so over what happened with Don and Marnie. Are you kidding me? Is that what this is about? I thought you heard me when I said I was seeking therapy for my anxiety and depression. Taking care of Marnie for the past 6 months took a huge toll on my mental health. That's something you two will never realize or understand. I know you're taking care of Cris while she's still recovering, but it's nothing compared to what I had to deal with Marnie. You think I give a shit that I was rejected 3 months ago? I've put it past me. You two are the ones being petty. All of a sudden, we stop talking and I'm not unwelcome at a white party because it's a private event? I mean, that's so ridiculous. Rebecca slammed the table. She was standing next to Cara and Michelle now, pointing her finger right into their faces. Cara and Michelle tried to keep their distance from Rebecca's outburst, but her words were hitting them hard. With the mixture of nicotine and alcohol getting to them, they were about to strike back harder than ever. Cara clenched her jaw as Rebecca continued her tirade. She was getting fed up with Rebecca's entitlement and lack of accountability for her actions. Petty. You're calling us petty after everything you've done? She snapped, struggling to keep her cool. Michelle was also visibly angry, her eyes narrowing as she listened to Rebecca's self-centered explanations. I'm getting seriously sick of your self-centered bullshit, Rebecca. You think the world revolves around you and your problems. Well, newsflash, it doesn't. Don't fucking tell me what to do, bitch, Rebecca shouted, pushing Cara back. I deserve an explanation as to why I'm being ignored in this friend group. If anyone's being childish, it's you two. Cara stumbled back as Rebecca shoved her anger escalating even further. You want an explanation? How about this? You're not a very good friend. You're selfish, inconsiderate, and you only care about yourself. That's why you're being ignored, she spat out, her voice rising. Michelle was also furious, her face flushed with anger. Exactly. We've had it with your crap, Rebecca. You can't just waltz in here and demand attention after everything you've done. Cara stumbled slightly from the force of Rebecca's push, but quickly regained her composure. She clenched her fists, her anger reaching its boiling point. You want an explanation? Fine, I'll give you one. You're being ignored because you're a toxic, selfish person who only cares about herself. The way you acted at my birthday party was out of line, and we're fed up with your bullshit. Rebecca purses her lips, picking up a full glass of wine and throwing it onto Cara. The liquid falls down Cara's chest and stains her skirt. Cara gasped as the cold liquid splashed across her face, staining her white dress and leaving a burning feeling on her skin. She stumbled back, feeling shocked and taken aback by Rebecca's sudden act of aggression. What the fuck, Rebecca? Cara exclaimed, wiping the wine from her eyes. The other guests at the party were watching the altercation unfold with wide eyes and open mouths. Some of them gasped, some of them whispered to each other, and others tried to subtly film the chaos on their phones. Michelle stood next to Cara, equally stunned by what had just happened. She placed a hand on Cara's shoulder, her expression filled with disbelief. Did she just... Michelle trailed off, unable to finish her sentence. Cara stood there, her dress stained and her face wet with wine, still processing what had just happened. She could feel the other guests' gazes on her, along with the murmurs and whispers filling the air. Rebecca stood across from them, a sneer on her face, as she looked pleased with herself. She took a step forward, as if daring them to retaliate. Michelle's grip on Cara's shoulder tightened, her eyes locked on Rebecca. This is not okay, Rebecca. What the hell is wrong with you? You mess with me and my emotions, and you get wine thrown on you. Simple as that, she shrugged, feeling a sense of triumph. If that's really the case, you've got another thing coming, Liz spoke under her breath. Cara and Michelle turned to look at Liz, surprised to hear her voice. They hadn't realized she was watching as well. Rebecca noticed Liz's comment and smirked, thinking her presence would only add to her advantage. Oh, really? And what are you gonna do? Rebecca challenged. Seriously, Rebecca? You just threw wine on my friend and you don't expect me to fight back? Liz stood up from the table, her emotions rising. She walked up to Rebecca and slapped her in the face with full force. The guests at the table, Cara, Gionni, and Michelle, were all surprised to see Liz defending her friends with violence. How's that, sweetheart? Aw, I'm sure you didn't like that, Liz taunted. Rebecca reeled back from the impact of Liz's snap, her hand darting up to touch her reddening cheek. Her expression turned from one of smugness to one of surprise and anger. You little... She sputtered, her face contorting in fury. Hit me again, baby. Bet you learned that from your husband. Not a good look. When she doesn't like how an argument is going, she fights back, Rebecca teased. Liz's eyes narrowed as she clenched her jaw in anger. Shut up! Don't talk about my husband, she said through gritted teeth. Rebecca let out a derisive scuff, a malicious gleam in her eyes. Oh, touchy subject. Can't handle the truth? Don't talk about my fucking husband, bitch. You don't even know him. As far as I know, you're single and no one wants you. Not even Don. He prefers your sister. Liz shook her head, clenching her teeth. Rebecca's smirk faded momentarily at Liz's words, but she quickly covered it up with a smug expression. That's a low blow, but let's be real, even your husband is probably tired of you. I mean, you're not exactly a ray of sunshine, she retorted, trying to get under Liz's skin. Liz's expression darkened as Rebecca's words hit close to home. You have no idea what my husband and I have been through, she said through gritted teeth, trying to keep her emotions under control. Cara placed a hand on Liz's shoulder, trying to calm her down. Ignore her, Liz. She's not worth it. Michelle nodded in agreement, her gaze fixed on Rebecca. Yeah, she's just trying to provoke you. I don't give a fuck what she's trying to do. You don't bring up husbands in this friend circle, whether it's to insult them or talk about someone's situation. It's uncalled for, Liz stomped. Hit me again, baby. I'm waiting. Rebecca gazed at Liz. Liz clenched her fists at her sides, feeling the anger boiling inside her. Despite knowing she should walk away and ignore Rebecca's provocations, she couldn't help but lash out. You want another slap? Fine. She stepped closer to Rebecca and slapped her again, harder this time. Rebecca stumbled back from the force of the second slap, her cheek now red and stinging. She touched her face, feeling the heat spreading across her skin. Liz glared at her, a mix of anger and satisfaction in her eyes. Michelle and Cara looked at one another, surprised by how far this had escalated. Some of the other guests at the table were watching with wide eyes, some of them even recording what was happening. Rebecca was now seething with anger, her hands still touching her reddened cheek. She clenched her jaw, trying to control her emotions, but it was clear that Liz's actions had struck a nerve. The other guests continued to watch in stunned silence, their earlier murmurs silenced by the intensity of the situation. Cara, still standing next to Liz, placed a hand on her arm once again, this time to caution her. Liz, maybe you should calm down now, she said gently. Liz took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. She knew deep down that getting into a physical fight with Rebecca was a bad idea, but the anger was still coursing through her veins. Michelle nodded in agreement with Cara, trying to diffuse the situation. Yeah, Liz, let's not give her what she wants, she said urgently. Liz sighed, trying to calm herself down. Okay, you guys are right, she finally said, giving up. I just needed to hit the bitch to put her into her place. Rebecca smirked, taking satisfaction in the fact that she had gotten under Liz's skin. You think hitting me put me in my place? Please, that's just amusing, she teased. Cara and Michelle rolled their eyes, exasperated with Rebecca's constant need to provoke. Rebecca, I think it's time for you to leave now, Gionni spoke up firmly. We have no room for people like you who want to provoke others with their words. Next time it'll be a lawsuit. Gionni nodded, pulling her away from Cara and Michelle. Rebecca tried to resist Gianni's grip, but he was strong and she was no match for his muscular physique. Hey, let me go, she exclaimed, trying to wiggle free, but Gianni's hold was firm. Some of the other guests were watching the commotion, whispering to each other and wondering what was going on. Gionni kept a tight grip on Rebecca, leading her toward the door. Come on, let's get you out of here. Gionni led Rebecca towards the door, still holding onto her arm to prevent her from escaping. She protested all the way, trying to pull herself free, but his grip was too strong. Cara and Michelle watched as Gionni escorted Rebecca out of the party. The other guests watched in shock as Gionni handled her with authority. Well, that was something. Michelle finally broke the silence, still in disbelief over the chaotic scene. Yeah, I'd say that's putting it lightly, Cara sighed, shaking her head. What a scene she caused. Michelle nodded, still in awe of what just had happened. I can't believe she showed up unannounced and uninvited. That was so rude. With Rebecca gone, Gionni took a moment to catch his breath and gather his thoughts. He couldn't believe the scene that had just unfolded at Cara's party. Rebecca's uninvited appearance and the heated confrontation had put a damper on the celebration. Gionni rejoined the party and the waitstaff was beginning to clear the table free of plates, glasses, and trays. The guests were settling into light conversations all around the table, a bit surprised at the turn of events the night had fallen into. Dessert was being set onto the table and guests were cutting cheesecake and munching on cupcakes. The atmosphere in the room was still a bit tense, the earlier confrontation lingering in the air. However, the guests were trying to move past the incident and get back to enjoying the party. Cara and Michelle were quietly talking amongst themselves, still shaken from the whole scene. Cara looked a bit shaken up, her dress stained with wine and her hair a mess. Liz was still sitting at the table, lost in thought, and still processing what had happened.